Welcome back to Learning How. Today we're learning about Jean-Francois Millet. Millet was born in 1814. He died in 1875 and he is from France. Millet grew up working the land and he is most well known for his depictions of peasants. In fact, he was the oldest in his family of farmers, so farming was very, very familiar with him. I guess I should say he's very familiar with farming. Some critics may think Millet is making political statements in his pictures and his paintings of peasants, but really, Millet saw respect and strength of the peasants' hard work. During this time in history, in 1836, was the Battle of the Alamo, and in 1863, Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. The first piece of art that we're going to study is called The Cellar. This painting was painted in 1850, and it is now currently located in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. This painting depicts a man throwing seeds into a field, and Millet stretched the man's proportions to show his strength. Proportions is the size of and the relationship between two objects or the sections of a human being's body in art. So, funny story. I wanted to get my husband, Mr. Derek, a painting of himself for his birthday last year. So I sent it off to this website that was supposed to be able to paint him. He's supposed to look like he's some sort of royal sergeant in like the army. So I thought it looked funny, thinking like he looks like some sort of royal person. And it looked nice online. The sample looked nice. But when I sent it to the artist to be able to make this digital image of him, the proportions were totally off. It looked silly. Like his head was super tiny and his shoulders were really big. So it looked like his head was like this big and his whole body would be like humongo. Proportions were totally off. And I kept sending it back to him and be like, could you make his head a little bit bigger? Like not so like his shoulders would be out like this. Like it looked like this. And I was like, could you make his head a little bit bigger so it would fit his body? And the person was like, I don't understand what you're saying. So the person was from another country. There was a communication error, and finally I had to say, never mind. We're not doing this because I don't want to give my husband a piece of artwork that he might think that is not a good representation of him. But anyway, proportions are important in artwork because you want to make sure the person looks nice. You don't want them thinking, oh, I got too big of hands or too something. So proportions also, though, if you don't make them not as an actual like 1:1 like ratio of a person's body, like the actual ratio of a person's actual physical being. If you make it a little bit bigger, it could be something different. Like a lot of times cartoon characters, their heads are not truly accurate, right? A lot of times their heads are bigger. So their proportions are off. Like if a real person had a cartoon character size head, they'd probably fall over because their heads would be so heavy. So sometimes, but that makes cartoon characters look nice and relatable. So sometimes proportions might be off to be able to send a meaning. So maybe you can think of some ways, maybe why an artist would show proportions that are off, and also think of ways maybe why they want to make sure their proportions are accurate, like not insulting somebody on their birthday gift. The second piece of artwork we're going to study is called Harvesters Resting. Originally wanted this painting to depict Ruth and Boaz from the Bible. However, in 1853, Millet changed the name to the Harvesters Resting. Ruth and Boaz are the two figures standing in the picture, but the main focus is not Ruth and Boaz. It appears to be the laborers. This picture is featured in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. The keyword that we're going to study from this painting is called tableau. It means a living picture. It means the people or the picture is arranged in such a way, it's in a picturesque way, that makes you feel like that the people are unaware that they are being watched. The third piece of art that we're going to study is called the Angelas. Angelus portrays a man and woman reciting prayer called the Angelus, which celebrates when the angel Gabriel visited Mary in the Bible story about the birth of Jesus. An Angelus can be seen as a set of prayers both in the morning, midday, and evening. When Millet was young, his grandmother would make him stop in the fields while he was working, and they would pray whenever they would hear the church bells ring. This painting, in fact, was so loved by Salvador Dali that it inspired him to paint several paintings. The keyword for this piece of art that we're going to study is called posture. Posture is how a person positions his or her body. Posture can sometimes show how a person is feeling. So as you look at this, how is posture used in this painting? The fourth piece of artwork that we're going to study is called The Gleaners. The Gleaners was painted in 1957 and is currently in a museum in Paris. The painter covers one of Millet's favorite subjects to paint, which is peasant life. As you can tell from a lot of his paintings, he likes to paint about peasant life. And so gleaning means to pick up leftover crops. And so after a field is harvested. So the one keyword that we're going to study with this painting is called juxtaposition. A juxtaposition is when two things are next to each other, but they're in contrast to each other. So in this painting, let's look at the different juxtapositions that are within this painting, like the light versus the shadows being used, the hard work versus the peaceful background, the picking of the leftovers, the little pieces that are left in the field, the gleaning, the picking of the leftovers in the field versus the very bountiful harvest. So maybe you can pick up some other juxtapositions from this piece of art that maybe I didn't notice. So for learning how today for your artwork, you are going to draw a picture of everyday life in your household. So Millet liked to draw everyday life that was for him, which was a lot of farming and peasant work. That's what he was used to. So maybe something that you're very used to, like maybe some work in your home, laundry, dishes, doing your schoolwork, sports, different things that maybe that you are used to within your household, something that's very typical. But let's see if you can use some of the different things that we learned, like proportions, if you can use posture in your artwork, or maybe juxtaposition. So maybe those different things you can use, or a tableau where you can paint something that it makes it look like the people in the picture don't know that you, the viewer, are watching them. So kind of like maybe a candid photo snap, but instead you're going to draw it. So that is going to be your project for learning how this week, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.